Oh, look, couldn't be better. Top of the world, you know.
Yeah.
How
I should
about
hope
you?
so. Yeah, oh, brilliant, mate. Yeah. It was the weather's now started to change. We've got we had a little street wedding yesterday. Actually, one of my neighbours got married, and
We're going to say it wasn't you, was it?
went. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. No, but the rest of the street went and had a great night. So yeah, feeling positive. As always, and you know, trading obviously, which is what we're here for, is also going well. So can't grumble at the minute, mate.
Happy days, mate. What about the data? What's that showing?
Let's have a look. So there are some I suppose some signals that I think we should be looking at and aware of. Let me make sure I get the correct screen here. I think this is right. And I want to show you what I'm looking for with the COT data specifically. So I'm going to try and pick out a currency just to kind of give an indication of where that currency may well be going in relation and regards to COT data. So when we break this down, this is the pound. This is about the pound sterling. This top line.
Wow, I didn't have a good week last week, I've got to say.
No, it didn't, mate. No, it absolutely didn't, and there's further troubles for the pound, and this is why I think the pound is definitely on the short list. You know, what we're trying to do before we start the week is try and get a list together for things that we think should be potentially long trades and things that we should potentially be thinking of short trades. Just like Lexi was just talking about, it's really putting the weakest against the strongest. And as you say, the pound didn't have a very good week, and considering they raised interest rates, I think on the face of it, that would suggest that we'd see some pound strength. But the statement afterwards was just so negative that you couldn't really make an argument for a strong economy going forward. And it maybe even the potential for the interest rate hikes to possibly be reversed or be slowed down in comparison to the others. And we saw a 25% rate hike from the United Kingdom and a 50% rate hike. Sorry, a 0.5% rate hike in the United States, and that may well be the state of things to come as we kind of move forward.
Actually, before you get into the data, I did have one question, and I noticed just because I watched the local news today, only an hour or so ago, Sinn Féin won the Northern Ireland elections. Is that going to have any effect?
Yes, it will, and it's not so much just that Sinn Féin won the Northern Ireland elections. It's also the councils throughout the country were voted on as well, and the Conservatives lost a lot of seats. You know, they've got issues. You know, where we've got this leader in position right now, Boris Johnson. Things tend not to stick to him. He's like he's covered in oil, and things don't tend to stick to him. But well, yeah, but things could be changing. You know, we've started to see you know, people vote with their feet when it comes down to the local elections, the council elections. The Conservatives lost a lot of seats. He's got this Partygate issue going on right now, where he threw a party during the COVID-19 lockdown, and there was DJs booked, and there was the champagne, and you know, everything was flowing. And while telling other people not to go and visit, you know, very, very sick grandparents and parents that were effectively on their last legs in hospital. So that hasn't really come back, you know, well on Boris Johnson. He's got a while before the election, but when you see this in the council and you see what happened in Ireland, as you say, then there could well be a shift that he may not be able to stop. So we'll see. But that also could be affecting what's going on with the pound. You know, the lack of certainty that the Conservatives that Boris Johnson's in the head of, it tends to be good for business. Labour tends not to be so good for business, and that could also affect what we see with the economy. Now, if
all right, let you get on with it, mate.
Yeah, well, if we look at the data here, so this is the index. Now, this really sort of is a calculation between the commercial buying and selling with a little bit of weighted with a weighted aspect to it, and we can see that the commercials are more, you know, they're on the long side, and as the pound comes down, as the price action comes down, what you will often see is the commercials starting to buy up almost as a protection against the flip in the opposite direction. Now that is likely to happen at some point, the flip in the opposite direction. And if we look down here, this is breaking down really what's going on with the buying and sell side. The blue line is the net between the buying and sell side. So let's just take that away for a second. And we can see there's quite a great deal of buying pressure with not much selling pressure. Now, what I want to see when I see that is the non-commercials effectively getting out the way to allow the commercials to influence the market. But if we come down to the non-commercials down here, lots of selling pressure and buying pressure coming down. So really what this is showing is that this market is in quite decent balance between the buying and selling on the commercials and non-commercial side. And if we were to flip to the price action, then we actually do see that the pound has come down quite far. And even though we could anticipate upside, at this stage, it's suggesting the trend is still intact. Sorry, this is the pound versus the CAD. Now, the reason I want to bring it up against the CAD is that because this suggests that there is some balance, and it suggests that the trend is still intact. The next thing I'd like to really sort of add to this, to see if I can add to the influence, is what's the seasonal pattern for the pound right now? And if we come over to the seasonal pattern for the pound, then what we see is the pound in May tends to do okay against the Kiwi. It tends to do okay against choppy against the yen. But when we come down against the CAD, remember I'm looking at the trend continuation here. I can see that during May, the pound tends to perform quite badly against the Canadian dollar. Now, if you listen to the statements after the Bank of England made their decision, it was pretty negative from Governor Bailey. And given what's going on with oil, that would lead again me towards something like the Canadian dollar, which as a producer of oil to the market. So pound CAD looks like a short seasonally. Going back to the COT data, it looks like the COT data was suggesting that the pound could continue a trend. We come down to what's going on with the CAD. Commercials are cutting back the shorts a little bit. The non-commercials, okay, they're cutting back the longs a little bit here, but that looks, pretty much in balance as well. So not a great deal suggesting a turnaround in fortunes in the pound CAD. And then finally, we'll finish at the price action with the pound CAD. And yes, it's very, very low. If you look at this on a monthly chart, you can see that there's some support down here, but we're through this trend line here. You take these away and build these up. So we're through this trend line here, a close beneath that level. We're through the lower trend line down here. And we are also through this, through this closing low here as well. So that looks pretty negative. And the question really then comes in, okay, we might have a short bias, but where do we get in? Looking at this chart, it would not suggest that getting in here is too wise. What we want to see is some sort of retracement back to one of these levels, the trend line maybe. Looking at the daily kind of gives us this point of structure. That was the last point we saw some upside, this point of structure. So it does suggest that, somewhere between here and the monthly pivot would be pretty good. And that's 1.6, let's call it 1.61 and all the zeros, or the monthly pivot. That would look like a decent point to potentially look for some shorting with a pound. So just to summarize, mate, we're looking at a pound still looking weak, and maybe against the CAD, we could look for a trade in that area. If we're concerned about the geopolitical aspect, moving towards something like the yen or probably the Swissy would probably be better as well. So pound shorts right now, but picking the correct currency and the correct price is still going to be integral.
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a challenge at the moment. And I think what you said before about now is probably not the right time to sell, because we are at such an oversold position on, and that's true for a lot of currency pairs at the moment, in my humble opinion. We continue to look at those currency pairs and think, well, okay, it's their time to turn or to retrace or whatever the case may be. But the momentum is so strong in the opposite direction. It's very, very
This is it, mate. And do you know what? I mean, the market bias is, yes, about finding the correct trade, but it's also about saying, okay, fine. We may not have an opportunity to go short here with the pound CAD, but that also states that we don't have an opportunity to go long either, because the data is not suggesting the turnaround is about to happen. So even though we might start to see some moves higher, it would suggest it's probably more of a retracement and a continuation down rather than a turnaround in the actual trend. So looking at a pound CAD long would be too dangerous. And, you know, we've got to be professional and say, okay, just because we're in a buy zone, it doesn't mean it's a buying opportunity. Data doesn't suggest it's a buying opportunity. It's still saying sell. So this is the time we sort of say, put it on the watch list, wait for it to give us the correct price action, and then we'll go on the short side still.
Yep. One of my acronyms, right? NLNS.
Yeah, know it well.
No longs, no shorts. I got it. Yeah. All right, mate. Look, have a good rest of Sunday, and hope you recuperate okay after last night's wedding. And we'll see you tomorrow, right?
See you soon. See you tomorrow, buddy. See you guys.